Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of World Talks here on TVP World. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and please join me and my guests on this next interview. French President Emmanuel Macron has proposed a substantial increase in defense spending. This proposal aligns with ongoing debates in the French Parliament over additional aid packages for Ukraine. Meanwhile, Marine Le Pen has rejected Macron's initiative to integrate France's nuclear deterrent into a broader European defense strategy. Joining us today on TVP World to discuss France's defense strategy, its role in the EU, and the geopolitical implications of these proposals is Romain Le Quiniou, Managing Director of Eurocreative. Hello, sir, and welcome to TVP World.
Hello, thanks for having me.
For the most recent update sees U.S. administration holding its support for Ukraine. Can you help us understand how that is being perceived from a French perspective?
Well, I think that the French perspective is a bit ambivalent here. On one side, there is, a legitimate fear, like all of our allies in Europe, and especially Ukraine, about the withdrawal, the aggressiveness, and the way of American administration, how it's done. And there is a legitimate concern on this, on the first side. On the second side, I think that what is very important also to understand is that French elite, or at least French strategists, believe that what they've been talking for years is coming true, which means that the NATO alliance, the transatlantic alliance, is evolving, and Europeans need to do more. Europeans need to build this so-called French way of seeing European security, but European strategic autonomy. Probably France was indeed right on some of these main features, of course, but in the same time, France was not able to sell this European strategic autonomy in the right way. And now there is a sense of urgency, which is very stressful for everyone in Europe, including in Paris. And we need to find solutions collectively to make sure that European security is being reinforced, strengthened, and that we can, in the same time, help our Ukrainian partners and friends, and in the same time, being able to rebuild our defense and security capacities in Europe.
Right, and Ursula von der Leyen recently announced this new rearmament plan that's going to be revealed soon. Do we know some of the details of it? What are we expecting?
We are expecting decisions from the Europeans on upscaling dramatically our defense and security capacities, which means money, basically. And we need to find ways on how to increase this spending, our collective spending. It means that each nation, each member state has to spend more on defense and security. I think that we have good examples already, such as Poland, the Baltic states, Greece, that we forget sometimes to mention, which are countries which are spending 3 to 5% of their GDP on national defense. And in the same time, it's very important also for bigger countries, big European powers, to spend more. France is just 2%. Germany is less. Italy and Spain are very, very low. And this is not acceptable in a world where Europe is facing direct threat. And we know that the situation of European nations, including France and Germany, is not perfect when it comes to financial and economic situations. And I think that we all need collectively to find solutions. And it cannot just come from national capitals. It also has to come from European institutions and European mechanism. And here we are talking about innovative solutions to finance this defense strengthening. We are talking about new ways of raising and spending money collectively, and I think this is very important to see what our option. I think that France is talking, of course, about exemptions when it comes to debt, when it comes to fiscality, and this is something that we have to explore, especially that now the so-called frugal states are more open to discuss these possibilities. Even countries like Germany or the Nordic countries are open to discuss how to spend more and to be less regarding the debt break. In the same time, we need also to find new ways of financing. It can be also using the funds that have not been used properly or entirely. I'm thinking about the structural funds, but I'm thinking also about the evolution of positions today when it comes to the Russian assets. And here I think that France is more and more vocal about the fact that their position is evolving on this topic. France, along with different other European countries, have been blocking this decision, this processes of using the Russian frozen assets for the rearmament of Europe, for the help to Ukraine. And I think that now it's maybe time to reopen this field, to reopen this discussion, and to see how concretely we can use this more than 200 billion euros of frozen Russian assets, and to be sure that they are spent correctly for our defense and security.
Right. Another topic of discussion that has been front and center is, once again, nuclear deterrence. Of course, can you help us understand what are some of the specific steps that would need to be taken to establish a European nuclear deterrence program?
Well, this is a very difficult topic, and this is the main characteristic of the nuclear deterrence, is that you don't know mostly about it, and that there is this idea of strategic ambiguity, and we cannot answer, strictly speaking, what are and what will be the discussions when it comes about nuclear deterrence and what the Europeans are thinking. And thankfully, we don't know, right? Because this is supposed to be secret. This is supposed to be ambiguous. What we know today is that the US has the nuclear umbrella over Europe. And when it comes to nuclear power, nuclear capacities, deterrence, we know that the UK and France also has some capacities, not as much as the US, but still have some capacities that can be, protecting Europe. The main question here is to know if the protection of the US through NATO and through the nuclear umbrella is still protective and will remain or not. Then we can have some discussions between Europeans on how to complement it, or how to replace it. Replacing it is, of course, difficult, and it cannot happen in one night. But I think that the UK and France are, the political power, the government there, are willing to offer discussions. It doesn't mean that it will lead to concrete solution, but at the moment there are concrete discussions, and this is a very divisive topic in France, because it touches upon the very basic principle of sovereignty, of strategic deterrence, of national interest of France. What we know is that France is willing to open a strategic discussion when it comes to its nuclear power, its nuclear deterrence power, but there is no question, like we heard in the French Parliament, about sharing this power with our European allies. This is not the case, and I think that some political forces, and especially from the extreme left and from the extreme right, are playing with a very dangerous topic. The idea today is to say that France has nuclear capacities, is willing to open discussions on our strategic culture and our strategic cooperation. It means maybe common exercises. It means maybe even, let's talk about wise, innovative, and strategic solutions. Maybe to, in the case of US withdrawing forces and guarantees, maybe to have some French capacities being deployed in some partners countries, allied countries in Europe. But it doesn't mean sharing. France will remain fully in control of its nuclear deterrence power, of the strategic decision, and we have to see how it can be discussed between allies and between Europeans, and how we can find a solution that is acceptable to everyone and that is helping Europe at its best.
Right. Like I said, there's a lot of necessity for strategic ambiguity when it comes to nuclear deterrence by the nature of these type of things. But I think it also muddies the water when it comes to these discussions. And even within French political parties, within their own parties, we see different statements from Le Pen, for example, and Jordan Bardella saying that the French defense interest does not stop at the border. And while nuclear umbrella already encompasses the European Union, where Le Pen is essentially coming out against extending that nuclear deterrence. Do you think it mostly has to do with the understanding of the nuclear deterrence in and of itself, or are there things under the covers that unfortunately, because of this ambiguity, that we cannot really understand?
Well, I think that Madame Le Pen understands very well what the French nuclear doctrine is, and I think that she wants to open a political front in France, which is about sovereignty and defense and security, and I think this is highly highly non-professional, not respectful of the French national interest. The French national interest is clear and the doctrine is clear. Of course, there is this strategic ambiguity, but there is no way that this doctrine will evolve to an extent that it will endanger the basic principle of French strategic deterrence, nuclear deterrence. What we know about the French doctrine is that French national and vital interests have a European dimension. I don't think that we need to develop more than this. We understand very well what it means. Of course, there is not, a specific guideline and textbook when it comes to the French use of nuclear force and deterrence power, and this is normal. Now, if we want to have a rational debate, we need to explain to our French citizens what it means that we open a discussion. And I think here the government is very clear, is that we try to find ways to reassure and to reassure our allies, our European partners, but we will not change the decision making. We will not change the basic principles of our nuclear power.
All right. Thank you so much for your input and insight. Really appreciate it. And thanks for being with us on TVP World.
Thank you very much.
Cheers. And thank you for watching this edition of World Talks. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.